I'll talk to you later.
Hey, Ken.
Hey, just join Google Hangouts meet.
All right, well, you know what? Just wait a second because we're going to open the meeting. So I have you on speaker. All right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
just hold on.
Okay, Ralph.
Okay, thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. At this time, we will call the Tuesday, April 21st, 2020 meeting of the Board of Education to order, our virtual meeting. Please stand for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Smith?
This is the Wall Township Board of Education meeting for which adequate notice under the Open Public Meeting Act was provided by a notice in the Co-Star, a notice to the Asbury Park Press, Township Administrator's Office, or Wall Township Public Schools, and a posting in the Board Administration Office on January 16th, 2020. I'll take a roll call. Mr. Gartz.
Here.
Mr. Hall.
Here.
Mr. Krupa.
Here.
Ms. Mangan.
Here.
Mr. Nasser.
Here.
Mr. Sanfilippo.
Here.
Ms. Stites.
Here.
Mr. Wondrak.
Did you hear him? He said here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Benizia.
Here. Okay.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Smythe. At this time, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session number 5 on the agenda for letter A, confidential matters per statute of court order, G, litigation or contract matters, and H, personnel matters. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Ken seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we will be back at approximately 7:30 p.m. we're just waiting for Mr. Wondrak. And for all the people that are attendees, if you wish to speak at some point, just raise your hand and we will get to you at public comment time. All right, good evening. I think we have everyone here, correct? 1, 2, 6, 7. Okay, yep, everybody's here. All right. We apologize for being late. As you can imagine, with the state of everything going on in the world right now, we have quite a few things to discuss, and that's why executive session went longer than we would have liked. So we apologize to everyone for keeping you waiting. At this time, we will reconvene the Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, April 21st, 2020. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Smythe?
Take a roll call, Mr. Gartz,
Here.
Mr. Hall,
I'm here.
Mr. Krupa,
Here.
Ms. Mangan,
Here.
Mr. Nasser,
Here.
Mr. Sanfilippo,
Here.
thank you, Ms. Stites,
Here.
Mr. Wondrak. Got to hold the space bar.
Here.
Thank you. And Mr. Agnesiu.
Here. Thank you. All right. At this time, we will move on to, we don't have any special presentations tonight. We don't have any student representative report, unfortunately. So we will move on to President's Report, which is number 9. So at this time, as President of the BOE, it's my honor to formally introduce the Acting Superintendent of Wall Township Public Schools, Dr. Henry Cram. This is the first official business meeting since Mr. Cram's arrival in the district, and we are grateful for him for his dedication he's demonstrated towards our staff and students while we navigate the many challenges our district and other districts like ours across the state and nation are facing during this pandemic. Dr. Cram arrives at Wall after retiring in June from a long and successful 40-plus year career in education. Dr. Cram has held a variety of teaching and administrative positions in New York and New Jersey, including 15-year tenure as Superintendent of Rancocas Valley Regional School District. Dr. Cram participated in the Middle Schools Association for 20 years and retired as president of that well-regarded school accreditation institution in June of 2019. Currently, Dr. Cram is a member of the Board of Trustees on Brookdale Community College. In addition to his academic accomplishment, Dr. Cram is a published author and has been a part-time lecturer at Rutgers Graduate School of Education and an instructor in the New Jersey Provisional Teacher Program at Rowan University. As the Wall Township School District traverses this time of leadership transition, as well as the upheaval in our delivery of educational and support services for our students, we are very pleased to have Dr. Cram at the helm. He is providing Wall with the stability a seasoned veteran offers, and we are confident our staff and students are in good hands. We welcome Dr. Cram into our school community and anticipate gaining excellent direction from his distinguishing perspective. So with that, Dr. Cram, Superintendent's Report, and welcome.
All right, thank you, Mr. President, and it's great to be here. In my role over the past 4 weeks and going forward, I've kind of broken it into several phases as I see them developing here. I started, of course, on March 23rd, 2020, and began the job of overseeing the district's conversion to a totally online operation as a result of the statewide closure required by the coronavirus epidemic or pandemic. I have stated several times to the board, and I want to state again tonight publicly, that I was very impressed with both the district's preparedness and implementation of the procedures guiding this transition. But nonetheless, as the closing has been extended, it is requiring ongoing maintenance and adjustment. I began meeting immediately with central office administrators, building level administrators, and supervisors, and established contact with the municipal officials. During my first 2 weeks on the job, I was involved in ensuring the continued smooth operation of the district's virtual instructional plan, working with staff on interim resolution of issues that arose. These included working with administrators and staff on modification to all normal operations and responding to unanticipated obstacles to ongoing operations. We had to address, for example, the impact that the school closing would have on the current budget and the rest planning for the rest of the year. I did that with Mr. Smythe. We modified the routine operations such as kindergarten registration and new student registration so that we're appropriate for the online environment. And I did that with central office staff. We continued our communications with the community. We restricted access to buildings and recreational facilities. We implemented the virtual instructional plan that had been put together by Dr. Gleason and the building level administrators. We had to ensure that technology access was extended to each and every student. And with your assistance, Mr. President, we've been able to maintain the food services to those students who are receiving free and reduced lunch. The board, the staff, and the community members' responses to these challenges have been marked by flexibility, perseverance, innovation, and an admirable level of commitment to the students of the district. 2 weeks ago, I started what I would call phase 2. It had been where we began to focus on coming to terms with the uncertainty regarding the reopening of the schools for 2019-2020. The continued closure is requiring more robust and specific plans for the continuation of online instruction, which again, Dr. Gleason has expertly led the district through developing. It has also required adjustments to all of the possible things that would happen this time of year and into the remainder of the year, and is going to require longer term solutions to questions of practice and policy and ongoing maintenance. And we're starting to talk about those things. For example, we had to finalize the budget. You're going to hear a little bit about that tonight and next week in the public hearing, and the impact that the pandemic has had on both the revenues and the expenditures for that budget. We have been continuing to solicit parent and faculty input on the efficacy of the online program so that we can continue to improve it. We've been reviewing relevant policies and creating some interim solutions because the longer the schools are closed, their concerns are arising about issues like privacy, and they need to be addressed. We have been trying to address the issues for non-English speaking families, managing the long-term staff absences, insurance compliance with the negotiated settlements as they apply to the online instruction, resolving questions regarding the continuation of things like extracurricular programs and athletics, standardizing the expectations for both attendance and for grading, resolving continuing ongoing technology issues. As recently as today, we're still getting requests for some people who need to either have Chromebooks replaced or have not needed the Chromebooks up until this point, but are realizing that they need them now. And not last, but not least, certainly not least, working with the staff to convert the board meetings to the virtual format. Again, the board, the staff, and the community member responses to these challenges continue to reflect an excellent level of support, a good deal of participation and cooperation, and again, an ongoing level of commitment to the students of the district. Today, I guess I would say I'd started phase 3. At the beginning of the 5th week on the job here, I anticipate that the focus of my role is going to be on preparing for the reopening of schools, whether that comes later this spring or next year. The emphasis will be on further adjusting policies and procedures for the continuation of the online learning environment, reflecting the lessons that we're learning and initiating planning for anticipated remediation this summer and possible adjustments to the curriculum for the 2021 school year if needed. And of course, rescheduling the end of the year activities like proms and scholarship dinners and graduations that I know everybody in the community is looking forward to. I've begun a series of department and school level meetings this week that are being conducted over the next several weeks so that I can better understand the school and district operations, which I hope will inform any recommendations that I will be making to the board and the new superintendent. I hope to address implementing the revised virtual educational plan and adjusting it, continuing to adjust it, have it adjusted as needed by the staff, planning for the eventual reopening of the schools, planning the extended school year compensatory and remedial programs, modifying the year-end celebrations, instituting year-end school closing procedures, initiating the planning for the 2021 school year, preparing for the transition for the new superintendent, reviewing, again, attendance and grading policies to see how they could be better implemented if we find ourselves in the situation again or the situation itself continues. And again, I have a number of additional responsibilities that I previously discussed with the board that I will be working on. As an example, we're trying to find, we're not trying, well, I'm investigating the trailer issue that the community has been very absorbed by and concerned about. And one of the things I intend to do is to go through the chronology of the events going back to 2007 and taking us up to right now as options are being explored for the removal of the trailers and everything in between, presenting the board with a chronology, the documentation that I've been able to review, and hopefully some recommendations as to the resolution of the issues and some lessons learned from that particular circumstance so that the board does not find, the board and the community don't find themselves in a similar situation going forward. That report will be presented to the board along with recommendations that you've asked for on a number of other issues. And it's my expectation that at that point, they will be shared with the larger community. It's been a very busy time. And I know there have been questions almost on a daily basis about certain issues, but I would really like to kind of collect those and look at them in a systemic way and provide some final resolutions, recommendations on some final resolutions once the more immediate pressing problems of operating the school district abate a little bit. I want to take this opportunity to, again, thank the board for the opportunity to serve as the acting superintendent, for the support that you've provided to me and to the staff as we navigate these very unusual circumstances that have been created by the emergency closing. And that, Mr. President, is my report.
Thank you, Dr. Cram. We appreciate you being here and all the hard work you've put in so far. And certainly the hard work that's ahead of all of us, not only here in Wall, but across the state. So thank you again. At time number 11, Board of Education updates, Mr. Gartz. You're not on speaker. You're still muted.
Yeah, I know. I was just talking to myself. I enjoy that. The F&F committee has met several times. We discussed last week as a board a framework for our budget moving forward. So we'd just like to present an outline of some of the things we've talked about with some more facts for tonight's discussion as a lead into next week's full budget presentation. So Lisa is going to transfer over to the screen, and we'll go through some information for everybody's benefit.
I'm going to need to have my screen sharing re-enabled, please, Mr. Clayton.
So again, this is a framework for what we'll present next week. Obviously, everything we do is bound by the mission statement of the school district to empower all students and to lead lives of fulfillment, purpose by providing comprehensive, caring educational environment. And that's the outline of what we're basing our plans on for sure. Lisa, next slide. Just a quick overview of the budget timeline began back in the fall and started with internal work with Brian and other administrators, principals, et cetera. Moved on to the board, F&F committee, and full budget workshops through January, February, through March to bring us to April. And here we are near the end with a budget hearing coming up next week. So just a quick outline for the things that drive the budget and to, just review, make sure that everybody's aware that the mission we talked about, the strategic plan and the budget should go hand in hand. And we're going to present some ideas tonight that tie the strategic plan to this year's budget. Always addressing enrollment issues and the challenges that come with changes in enrollment programs and resources to maintain and improve the facilities, of course, technology infrastructure being so important in our current last 6 weeks. Obviously, our salaries and benefits and the impact of virtual learning is new and much more impactful than it's ever been. So as you can see from all these bullet points, it's a lot, and the budget's all encompassing and does its best to, and hopefully the process did its best to take into account all these needs. So just a little quick look back from the last 3 years here in Wall, 17, 18, and so on to this current fiscal year. The revenues and expenses, the tax levy increases over the last 3 years, as you can see, were 2%, 1.99, and 0.98. The tax rates and then the impact to the average annual, annual tax impact to the average homeowner, as the average home price in town is roughly about $481,000. So you can see there on the bottom, we were $115 a year, 44 and change, and 56.63. So that just gives you a little history of where we've been. Just a quick look at a couple of districts that are very similar to Wall here in Monmouth County. That's where we drew the circle, just in Monmouth County, and found some districts that are roughly the same size. To give you an idea of where we are budgetary per pupil, and then the makeup of the districts. Obviously, the last two columns are drivers to the cost per pupil. They tend to have an impact on where those numbers go. So we felt it was important just to give you a picture of where Wall sits in the immediate area. And we think, favorably, as you'll see in the next slide for sure, based on our per pupil cost and then the results on that cost, the testing. And again, you'll see this is 18-19 and the slide before was 18-19. That's all the information that's available currently. So you can see that, for the amount of money we're spending per pupil, we feel as though we have a pretty good comparable success rate. And that's important, certainly against the state averages and certainly against some other districts here locally. So tying to the strategic plan, there's a number of goal areas. 1A is high quality standards based on curriculum instruction. And you'll see that this year's budget is going to hit the following bullet points. Reimbursement for teachers, mentor teachers. The summer remediation is going to be a big number that we feel is going to be important as we move forward to the end of this school year. And depending on how things shake out, what's going to be the impact of our virtual situation and how summer courses will be impacted. 1B is our diverse programming to support the academic, social, and emotional needs of all learners at the various levels, AP and honors courses, different offerings in the career academies at the high school, Again, accelerating advanced level learning of world languages at the middle school, maker spaces, the elementary schools exposing to the art and the music. And if you look at the school family liaison counselors, there's a little bit of growth in the budget for that this year. And then the SEL programs, including zones of regulation, lifelines, and challenge day, mindfulness, all great mental health and mindfulness training for a student population that needs it more than ever, certainly after the challenges that they've endured in the last 6 weeks. Goal area 1C, having to do with technology and digital resources. Again, so much more important now, more than it was maybe even 3 months ago. And you'll see the second to last bullet point, the increased technology, instructional technology for teaching and learning at all grade levels, and intuitive practice assessment platforms. New professional development for this virtual instruction is going to be extremely important. The replenishment of Chromebooks through the virtual instruction. There's a lot of Chromebooks that we feel are going to come back, maybe not working the same way, might not come back at all. So we have to make an investment in that infrastructure and that hardware. Goal area number 2, culturally responsive school environment that's affording students meaningful and flexible opportunities. So, across the board, the budget touches on a lot of different areas here, the vocational, the athletics and co-curricular, again, the academically talented offerings and the different opportunities, through mental health as well as advisory groups, music. So it's an across the board type of budget impact that, is probably a standard annual impact, but we just wanted to highlight that we're touching on the goal as necessary. Goal number 3, implementing fiscal responsible measures and a schedule of facility infrastructure improvements. We do plan to use the bank cap, as you'll see towards the end of the presentation, and a lot of that money is going to be used for very solid projects that are security driven. And there are additional speakers inside and out of schools to provide a proper notice for emergencies, and expanding the building access doors, door access controls and security systems in all the buildings. And the board took this challenge very seriously and this need very seriously, and felt it was very important for us to look at this and use this money wisely for this very important security upgrade, these important upgrades, excuse me. Goal number 4, the town identity and community involvement. Again, probably some constants in the budget with our website and our internships with the area organization through the academies, as well as the curriculum committees and so on. So as we look to the revenue, as you'll see, moving forward for this year, the general tax levies is a 2% increase of a 1.3 million roughly. We do plan on using the bank tax levy, which is available to us from, I believe, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 years ago because of a health waiver, if that was correct information. And you'll see the other increases and opportunities for revenue there listed. Coming down to the bottom, you'll see that our revenues are actually down year over year. And the main driver of that is if you look at our capital reserve drawdown, you'll see last year there was $3.5 million in the budget for that, and there's far less than that this year, and that's the main offset to all the ups and the downs. So net for this year, revenue is down about $500,000 from the previous year. As we move forward and look at expenses, you'll see obviously the same number down. A balanced budget will do that, and the instruction and so on down the line, co-curricular tuition, some ups, some downs, and net, our balanced budget brings us to an increase in irregular instruction of $1.2 million and special education of $600,000, and then some others ups and downs throughout that area. And again, to the final slide, just to provide a quick summary, looking at what we're going to present next year, our investment by the taxpayers will net, if you look in the middle of the red box, the average house assessment, because of an increased ratables in the town, the annual increase with a 2% tax levy and bank cap will affect most of the average homes by $35 per year. And you can see if you have different levels of home ownership, the $7.27 for every 100,000, just multiply that out and you can figure out what the appropriate estimate would be for your tax increase in relation to the schools. And we feel as though we're using this money wisely in a one-time opportunity to take advantage of the tax rateable increase and to touch on some very important topics of technology that need to be reimbursed because of the circumstances that we're in, and to really improve our security opportunities. All in all, the tax increase is less than a penny per thousand, And we feel very positive about where it's going to lay out and look forward to a little deeper presentation next week at the public hearing. I welcome any questions from the board members at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Gartz. Dr. Gleason, if you could take the slide down. Can't see anybody. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, Ralph, I would like to ask Mr. Gartz a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so Russell, if you could just explain a little bit more, maybe in detail, just so that people understand that the public understands that this year the ratables that the town was that we're able to tax on. In other words, being that there was more buildings and more businesses and more taxable properties in the town, that by the tax burden is going to be shared amongst a larger pool of people. So therefore, a small increase spread over a much larger pool of
Joe, you got frozen there?
you could explain that a little better, just how the.
Sure. To Joe's point, basically there's more contributors to the pool of resources, and therefore, as he said, the burden per family is a little bit less. So we were able to raise more money, but not have as much of an impact per household. And we felt good about that for this year, to take advantage of it while we can, because we did have some needs for sure between security and technology. And we feel as though that the money is going to be invested wisely. And for the average household to increase their investment in the school system by roughly $3 per month, we feel as though we're going to provide a good return on that.
Mr. Sanfilippo, you have something? Question? You're
You're on
still
mute.
muted. There you go.
Sorry. I just wanted to thank you for the presentation. It's nice to have it up, and with the live streams and everything like that, people will be able to go back. And if they want to pause the slides and go through all of those numbers in a little bit more depth, I just thank you for the time and effort that you put in for that.
Well, Lisa and Dr. Cram and Brian did 99% of the work, and I appreciate their time on it, and happy to be able to give a quick snippet of what's to come next week.
Ms. Stites?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the
Christine, we can't hear you.
committee as well. I did find it very
You're kind of frozen, Christine.
No.
Nope. Sounds like you're talking underwater. Now you're frozen.
I hate this.
Nope. There you. Maybe you're back. Maybe.
Well, we appreciate the congratulations, Christine. Thanks for the kind words.
No, Christine's frozen.
How about anything now?
No. You're muted now. Oh, I think she might have gave up. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? No? Seeing none. Russell, you have anything else to add, or good for now?
No, that was it. Just a quick snapshot of what we're going to present next week in more detail.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, at this time, public comment. If you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand and we will go to you. Ms. Cross, you are, hold on one second. Let me see.
Hi, Betsy, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you. Sorry about
Okay.
that.
I'm disappointed that you gave this presentation, but you didn't put up ahead of time. And, I'm here taking pictures of the slides. So quickly, if you could go over salaries for regular instruction and special instruction are going to be an extra 1,896,086, and and support services is going up 356,976. Your 2% change, you only have 1.3 million. So that means you're going to be cutting an awful lot from the students. So could you let me know, how did you come up with those numbers and where are you going to cut? Because I don't see Mr. Smythe cutting anything. Those are some very quick numbers that I was able to do. I got a neighboring town's presentation in one of your slides, and their numbers are different than your numbers. So their cost per student was higher than what you have in yours. I'm not sure where you're getting your numbers, because the wall numbers, including transportation, are much higher than what you just gave. You should have online your advertised per pupil cost calculations. I have Ocean Township at 21,386, which is lower than what you just showed us. So I don't know where you're coming up with your numbers, but you should really put a footnote. And we really, you're looking to cut all this from the students. We need to know what you're cutting. Also, last year you had a slide and it was talked about what you were buying. Roof replacement, 160,000, replacement of 5 buses, 129, high school smoke detectors, 40,000 that you never bought, painting the exterior West Belmore, 40,000, you never did that. Door replacements at Intermediate, Allenwood, and Central, you only bought the Central. So this is what I said at the last, I think 2 or 3 meetings. You have to go back and look at your budget presentation from last year, Dr. Cram, and the board should update what they actually spent from what they budgeted. And now you have 1.3 million and you're spending 2.5 million just on salaries extra. So we really need a much better presentation. I'm going to say this is the 10th year in a row I've said the same exact thing. Could you also go over residency investigations? Last year you had 28 students. It just kind of stands out with this food service only serving 151 meals, in these trying times, we need to be sure that everybody you have signed up for, the meals are getting them. You have safety precautions in place so that workers are working and they're safe. And that figure out why in these hard times with the pandemic, how did we not have 250 people get meals? So, I would like a residency check for the whole school. That should have been done a long time ago. And, get the meals to the people that need them. Mr. Hall, you kind of went over some banking information last time, and you said you sat down with Mr. Smythe and you looked at it. I think we have $13 million sitting in the bank now. Could you go over how much interest we made last month, Mr. Smythe? And Mr. Cram, I'd like you to look at that as well. Mr. Smythe, we had a contract with TD Bank where we had no bank fees and we were getting interest, and then all of a sudden it changed. So in addition to you looking at the trailers, I would really appreciate if you would look at TD Bank and figure out what was going on there, because that doesn't make any sense. Mr. Cram, if you could let us know, how are you going to investigate the trailers? I have binders and binders of information, and I want to be sure that you have it, because when you do your timeline back to 2007, I want to be sure you have every document that I have. And if something comes across that maybe something wasn't right and you need to contact somebody, I want to be sure you have it. So parents have been trying to get to the bottom of the central school trailers. We've been getting the runaround since August 20th. It's now April 21st. I want to go over the online. I think you should give out another survey. A shout out to my son's history teacher, Jennifer McGuire. She's doing a great job with history. All of my son's teachers are this week. Everybody, I'm seeing an improvement. So I'm glad that I mentioned it at the last week. I do want to see more in math. I do want to see more in English. But I've seen an increase this week from what I have seen over the last 4 weeks. And maybe, Mr. Krim, maybe you can reach out to Ridgewood, Milburn. What are they doing? You know, so, you know, let's not reinvent the wheel here. If somebody has something that's working in another school district, let's just ask them how they did it. Because parents are getting frustrated. I spend a lot of time every morning printing off documents for my son that he needs, that I think is easier rather than him looking at it on a small screen. And then I've sent in a number of emails. I try and go up the chain of command like everybody asked me to. I go to Brian Smythe, it goes nowhere. I go to the board, Ralph Adonisio, it goes nowhere. I've gone to Dr. Cram, then I go to Lester Richards, then I go
I'm
to.
sorry, your time is up.
Right, if you could
Thank
answer
you.
my questions, thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? Okay. Okay. Samantha, are you?
Yeah, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So I wanted to say, welcome, Dr. Cram. And as a central school parent, I am very pleased to hear that you will be looking into the issues with the trailers. That's all that parents have wanted since August 20th, is to get a full and complete accounting of what went wrong, what happened, and to make sure that these things never happen again in this district. So I'm pleased to hear that you'll be doing that. Mr. Adonisio, is this public comment just on the agenda items, or is this public comment on everything?
It's the agenda items for now.
Okay, so then I'll end there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sheila?
Hi, this is Sheila Lamagra. I definitely wanted to say thank you to my son's teachers. They've really gone above and beyond, especially in the last couple of weeks, to increase the level of actual online teaching. But I have a question related to special ed students. With the changes in the schedule this week, my son no longer has access to the gen ed classes that he was in. The meetings are at the same time. So if he's in his teaching special ed class, he can't sign on to the gen ed class of, for example, social studies and science. What that did for him in being able to see his other peers, his gen ed peers, and that social interaction really helped during this whole pandemic quarantine. So I just would hope that you guys could take a look at adjusting the schedule to make sure the kids that have IEPs that are supposed to have a certain percentage of gen ed interaction can still get that.
Okay. Thank you. And what we'll do is, I don't know, Dr. Gleason, is that something, or Dr. Cram, you would handle? And if maybe she emails you?
Yeah, it would be helpful if we had the specifics on it. You know, as I said in my report, we're in uncharted waters here, and we make some changes and have unanticipated consequences in others. So if we can get some details on that, Dr. Gleason and I will talk with the staff about that and see if it's a widespread problem or maybe something we can do in this particular situation.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
So Sheila, go on our agenda to the last page, and Dr. Cram's email address is on there.
Okay.
If I could also just mention, Mrs. Lamagra, I believe we did talk this week, and you made me aware of the conflict, and I did bring that back to the building principal, and she's addressing that conflict so we can make sure that they're, you know, because the teachers are managing this new schedule. And so they're going to make sure that they look into that so there's no cross conflict in your son's scheduling with those live cat classes.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will move on. And just we mentioned it last week. We are evolving as a district. We are learning new things every day and taking new steps to, with the technology we have, to do the best job we can. And our staff has been doing a fantastic job, along with the administration, getting us to where we need to be. All right.
Mr. Anizio?
Yes, Mr. Smythe.
With regard to some of the public comments and the update from F and F with regard to some of the numbers, they were inaccurately stated. With regard to the increase in the regular instruction, that is not just salaries, that is all costs associated with regular education instruction. So the increase of $1.2 million is not salaries. That includes salaries of the staff that provide regular instruction, but it also includes the supplies that are provided for regular instruction, including Chromebooks. It also includes the services related to regular instruction. With regard to the cost for special education, again, those are not salaries. Those are the total costs for those programs being special education. The difference in the numbers being utilized in the presentation is they are budgetary numbers. Those are the budgetary per pupil cost for each of the districts, which is used for comparative purposes because the other numbers being referenced would be total spending with regard to, which is a larger cost, which does include transportation, but to compare districts on a more apple-to-apple basis with regard to educating students, it's determined not to actually be a fair comparison. If you have a small district, you could have the same amount of students, but if you have a smaller area and majority of your students walk as compared to a larger area school districts where provide significant more busing. So those costs are broken out compared to total spending to budgetary comparisons. And lastly, with regard to the free and reduced and the number of students, again, all students that are identified as free and reduced when this started were contacted and asked if they would like to participate in the free and reduced program. All of the students or all of the families that said yes, they would like to participate are participating and they are being provided lunch. As we continue to move through this, we will continue to identify students that would like to become part of the program, and they can contact the business office or they can contact the food service director, Sandy Bailoni, and we will put you on the list so that you're included in the deliveries that we are making each week.
Thank you, Brian. And just as a matter of fact, last week, I believe there was one family that no longer wished to receive the lunches. And this past week, we picked up one family that would like to have been added to the list and they were delivered to. So every week it changes and evolves, and certainly anybody that needs it, we will help them. And if they need additional help, we will certainly guide them to the correct place to get that help if needed. Okay, we do not have any old business. I'm sorry, old business. 13, approval of the secretary minutes. So we have the executive session from March 3rd, budget workshop March 3rd, executive and workshop from March 10th, executive and special from March 12th, executive and special from March 14th, executive and special from March 15th, executive and business from March 17th, executive and special from March 21st, executive and special from March 22nd, executive and budget workshop from March 25th, and executive and special from March 31st. Could I have a motion on those?
So
I'll
moved.
make that motion.
Oh,
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Mr. Smythe, do you want to do a roll call on it, or all in favor?
I'll do a roll call.
Okay.
Hopefully quickly. Mr. Gartz,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Krupa,
Yes.
Ms. Mangan,
Yes.
Mr. Nasser,
I will abstain on A and B, yes on all the others.
Mr. Sanfilippo,
Yes.
Ms. Stites, Ms. Stites,
I think she might be frozen.
okay.
Yeah, she's frozen right now.
Mr. Wondrak,
Yes.
Mr. Anizia, oh, Ms. Stites,
Yes, yes, please, yes.
We got you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Oh, it's repeating. Yes, Mr. Smythe, for me. All right, 14 policies. We do not have any policies for first reading. For second reading, we have 2412, regulation 2412, 3440. I'm sorry, 3340 for grievance and 4340 for grievance. At this time, we will open public hearing on these 4 items. If anybody has a comment on these 4, please raise your hand. Seeing none, we'll close public comment on those. I have a motion.
Make the motion.
Make a motion. Second.
Second, any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Smythe?
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Krupa?
Yes.
Ms. Mangan?
Yes,
Mr. Nasser?
Yes.
Mr. Sanfilippo?
Yes.
Ms. Stites?
yes,
Thank you. Mr. Wondrak?
Yes.
Adenizia?
Yes.
Mr. Gartz?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Adenizia?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. 15. Could I have a motion on item 15?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on any of them?
A through G.
Yes, A through G. Seeing none, Mr. Smythe?
Mr. Krupa?
He's saying yes. He waved.
Ms. Mangan?
yes,
Mr. Nasser?
Yes.
Mr. Sanfilippo?
Yes.
Ms. Stites?
yes,
Mr. Wondrak?
Yes.
Mr. Gartz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
And Mr. Adenizia?
Yes, thank you. Dr. Cram, Superintendent's report.
Well, there are several items there that are listed that we would certainly recommend that the board consider adopting or approving for this evening. They relate to the Human Services report, some, 3 HIBs that were in your packet, and then several just monthly actions that need your attention.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a motion on 16 A through G?
So moved.
Mr. Gartz, could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, Mr. Smythe?
Ms. Mangan?
yes,
Mr. Nasser?
Yes.
Mr. Sanfilippo?
Yes.
Ms. Stites?
yes,
Thank you. Mr. Wondrak?
Yes.
Mr. Gartz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Krupa?
Yes, with the extension on letter B, please.
Mr. Adenizia?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Smythe, 17 Business Office.
May I ask for a motion to approve items 17A through F by consent agenda, please?
I'll make the motion.
Second,
Second.
Mr. Gartz. Any questions, discussions? Seeing none, Mr. Smythe?
Mr. Nasser?
Yes.
Mr. Sanfilippo?
Yes.
Ms. Stites?
yes,
Mr. Wondrak?
Yes.
Mr. Gartz, and I would ask if your approval would be abstaining on anything? Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, with the abstention on the one conflict I have with the Collier School.
Thank you. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Krupa?
Yes.
Thank you.
yes,
And Mr. Adenizia?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, number 19, public comment. Please raise your hand if you have public comment. All right, we will go to Ms. Cross.
Hi, Betsy Cross. Just wanted to go over, you said that when you were in executive session, you had a lot of things to talk about because of, kind of the pandemic, but I don't understand why you would be talking about any of that in executive session. You should have only been talking about confidential matters for court statute, litigation or contract matters or personnel matters. So I don't know why, I mean, you came out at 8:07, you went in at 6:15. That was almost 2 hours in the back. So you should really have some very long executive minutes. And the budget presentation that you were doing, that should not have been shown in the back. It should have been shown in the front, and we should have had a lot more information. Mr. Smythe broke that out about the salary. So next week, I'm hoping you can break out how much of the increases for supplies and how much is going to be increases for salaries. Because no one is able to tell from your presentation. And just for regular instruction and special instruction, it's an increase of almost $1.9 million. And support services. And all the items. Mr. Smythe, if you could go over the benefits decrease, if you could go over that tonight, how you came up with that number. Mr. Cram, for your investigation for the trailers, could you be sure you talk to Bob Romano, Mike Monahan? I'm going to send you a bunch of other names that are in reports. The teacher that fell through the floor, the people that found the siding was corroded. There's probably 15 people that you're going to need to talk to do a proper investigation. When the school district did an investigation and we hired a forensic auditor for food service, where $1 million was misallocated, sadly, the forensic auditor only spoke to Brian Smythe, and that was set up through Eric Brophy as the board president. So that was a complete waste of $100,000. You don't do investigations and you only talk to, please don't just talk to Mr. Smythe. You need to talk to all the people involved. I see Mr. Gross is getting a little antsy there. So he's got quite a bit of information. I also have all the attorney bills you can look at, and I'm seeing a lot of time spent on OPA requests, how to not maybe provide information. It's a complete waste of so many people's times. The main thing is whatever happened with these trailers, people need to be held accountable. So we cannot have what happened. It never should have gotten to that point. And Mr. Adonisio really from the beginning kind of messed everything up by withdrawing his own OPA requests where we would have had information. So I'm sure if people deleted text messages and deleted emails, it'll all come out. Yeah, next week. And, please, you need to put your budget presentation up earlier. You can't put it up like how you did tonight and have people take a picture of it with their phone and run through the numbers. You're running an $80 million school district. You need some accountability, and there's absolutely none here. So, Mr. Garth, I'm really disappointed in how this was handled tonight. It should have been put up online so people could have looked at it and asked the proper questions. And Mr. Hall, if you could go over how much interest is in the budget that we're going to be making next year. And how much interest did we make last year? I'm sure you got that from Mr. Smythe when you had your meeting. Again, I think you should go out for a survey again with, I think you should go to top schools in New Jersey, go to the top 10 schools in New Jersey, see what we're doing for online teaching versus what they're doing for online teaching. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Other schools are 3 weeks ahead of us. We're just now starting. Emails that are going out or emails that should have went out 3 and 4 weeks ago. So again, I did see a big improvement with my son's teachers, and I'm very, very happy about that. But we definitely have a ways to go. I saw something today saying losing 4 months of math is losing 70% of math, and we cannot have that happen. I hope Mr. Smythe is sending you copies of my OPA replies because I see he just sends them to me. I got that contract from Mobile Lease from 2007 that isn't dated and lots of crossouts on it. So, Mr. Cram, maybe let me know tonight if you're getting all the emails that Mr. Smythe is returning to me, so I know who I need to send them to within the DOE and anybody else. And please have.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to thank our teachers for the work that they've done to make the transition to holding virtual classes this week. I was able to sit in on my children's kindergarten, first grade, third grade, and fifth grade classes that have been held. And my daughter's kindergarten classes were fantastic. Mrs. Rosselli at Central School was able to review material, reinforce concepts the students have already learned, and introduce new content in just 30 minutes. My daughter happily said that it felt like she was back in real school. And this has really been a meaningful step to reestablish some sort of structure and normalcy for the kids. In other classes, my children's teachers have screencast themselves into their lessons. And I've noticed a huge difference in their attention, engagement, and understanding when it's their teacher's voice in the video, even if the lesson isn't live, rather than a YouTube video, Envisions Math, or other platform. It's been helpful to me as an elementary school parent to be able to see and hear how my children's teachers are explaining concepts, how they want them to do things, and the best way to present the content to my children at home. And since the elementary students really do need their parents right next to them for the entire time they're doing their work, this has helped me model what their teachers are doing at school and support them in their learning more effectively. I think it might be worthwhile for the district to post some tutorials about the Seesaw app that the lower grades are using, so parents can become more comfortable with the different tools and ways the app can be used. I don't think there's such a thing as too much communication between the schools and the parents at the elementary level. Dr. Gleason, your communication has been absolutely fantastic to us, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm just wondering if the elementary schools would think about doing a survey, an additional survey with room for feedback, because I think the feedback that the elementary parents give is probably quite different than that at the intermediate school and high school. My concern is for the younger students in the lower elementary grades that are missing out on so much class time and one-on-one time with their teachers at a point when it's really most crucial for their development as readers. And I'm wondering, and I guess this is best directed to Dr. Gleason, if the district is thinking of additional ways to keep these young readers moving forward during this virtual learning instruction, since they really are missing out on a really important part of their year. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment? Okay, seeing none. Dr. Gleason, did you, or Dr. Cram, did you have any responses?
Well, I would just like to thank her for the comment, because we know that the staff is out there working very diligently to try to make the best of the situation. We would be the first to admit that the online environment that we're able to provide is no substitute for the students being in school. And I think it does have a much higher impact on the younger learners, because the older students still are connecting, via Facebook and TikTok and different ways in which they can kind of maintain a socialization. It's much more challenging and difficult to do that. I'm sure Dr. Gleason, I want to also commend Dr. Gleason for her communications, because I get them and they are very comprehensive and very thorough and very positive and encouraging, and I hope they're as useful to parents as we think they are. But I'll ask Dr. Gleason to respond specifically to the reading.
Thank you, Dr. Cram, and thank you, Mrs. Bassett. First of all, I'm glad that you, like many parents I've heard from this week, are seeing an improvement. The biggest change that happened beginning this week was that we standardized the minimum number of live and recorded lessons that teachers were required to provide. we took the data from the first survey, and overwhelmingly, that's what parents were looking for, and understandably so, especially at the elementary grades where, as Dr. Cram said, they're really missing that social interaction with their classmates and seeing their teachers because they don't have social media and phones. So I'm glad to hear that that's been an improvement on the receiving end. And I think as teachers get better and more proficient at that, you may even see an increase in that, and that'll just enrich the experience even more. We can absolutely get a tutorial up on the website for Seesaw. We have some like ambassadors that use Seesaw that are really expert at this, and I'll reach out to them tomorrow and we'll get a parent tutorial. And with regard to Mrs. Bassett's last comment with how are we looking at remediation, and yes, this is a really important conversation, and as a follow-up to Mr. Gartz's update to the board on the preliminary budget highlights, we are absolutely looking at ways that the budget will support summer remediation. In the past at the elementary, the only district-funded general education program was Summer SOAR, which was a literacy program for grades 2 through 5. The students would go for, I believe, 2 hours, and it was focused just on literacy skills. This year, we're looking to develop a more comprehensive program that will be for students identified in K through 5, not just grades 2 through 5, as well as the upper grades, as we get a better handle on where those needs are. And it will not just be literacy, but it will also be math. So we are looking at ways that we are going to expand offerings that we've had in the past to be more comprehensive and to address what we know will be a slide in learning from school closure and moving to virtual learning environments.
Thank you, Dr. Gleason.
You're welcome.
Mr. Smythe, did you have anything that you wanted to add this evening?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. The one thing I'd like to say is the question on interest has been asked and answered probably more times than I can count with long presentations on that. So certainly if anybody has questions on that, you could probably go back to just about any board meeting and that has been answered. Also in regards to handling of the trailers going back to August, we had special meetings. People had individuals had opportunities to speak and ask questions, and were able to speak longer than if you added up 10 years of board meetings and combined all their time. So certainly we listened to people, we heard people, and as a district, to a certain extent, we moved forward by not having students put back in those trailers. And certainly as a district, we had to move forward to make progress. And with that, Dr. Cram is going to be handling some things for us. And that's the extent of our trailer conversation. So let's open up. Mr. Hall, do you have anything you'd like to add this evening?
No, I think I'm good tonight.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Stites? You have anything you want to add?
Can you hear me?
No, sorry.
I guess not.
Sorry. Miss Megan?
No, thank you. I'm very pleased with how our district is constantly evolving and changing with the times. I know each week we get better and better at this virtual learning, and ultimately really truly trying to better our students' experience and bring the classroom experience at home to them.
Thank you. Mr. Nassar?
I couldn't have said it better myself. Everybody, I'm impressed every day, and it's an honor to be part of this board in this district.
Thank you. Mr. Wondrak?
No, I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Krupa?
Hello there. Thank you. I want to say thank you to the Up committee and those individuals from the central office that did contribute to that presentation tonight. And I look forward to more information and explanation on the breakdown of the budget. I think somebody said it earlier, maybe it was Dr. Cram, I'm not sure, but the evolution of the virtual learning and the classrooms online, it's as people have said, ongoing, fluid, dynamic, and we're trying to improve the experience for all levels, pre-K all the way through high school. I think it's important to know and consider, again, though we see it, it's got to sink in that it's never going to replace the personal contact in the classroom. And everybody, even the highest performance to the lowest performance districts, are in the same challenge right now. So it's a partnership between the home and the schools, and that feedback that we're getting here tonight and through the emails that Dr. Gleason and the principals are fielding is critical, because that's how we don't have the opportunity for the face-to-face right now. So that's how they're getting the feedback. They did a survey, but even that, has its limitation. So having said all that about academics, the social emotional learning piece, and this is not just for the kids, this is for us, the adults, the board members, the administrators, the teachers. Take care of yourselves. We're now in week 5 or more of this. This is about, yeah, exactly. This is about the time that you're going to start to see another level of anxieties come through. And so we have to be mindful of those things that Dr. Gleason, the nurses, I saw a video about, that was put forth by the nurses in our district, the guidance counselors are putting in front of us. It's there, but it's glazed over. We really have to hold on to that, because I can just gauge it from my own experiences. I'm feeling a level of fatigue, so, and anxiety, because this is truly a life-threatening disease, and we're doing the best to protect everybody. So let's protect our mental health equally. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krupa. Dr. Cram?
I just wanted to remind everybody, especially the people who are watching the board meeting at home, that the budget presentation tonight was really the Finance and Facilities Committee's attempt to kind of bring the rest of the board into the planning process here, and that the full public hearing on the budget is scheduled for next week. And I think, and Brian can correct me, I think the budget is going to be advertised in all of its detail on the 23rd. So people should have ample opportunity, if they're interested in looking at the pages of the budget and the line items and comparing it to the more general presentation that we're going to give next week, and be able to come with some informed questions. We would certainly welcome that.
Thank you, Dr. Cram. When's that going to all be up on the website?
Well, the reference to the 23rd is the advertised budget, which is a document that is produced from the Department of Education on the district's budget that we're required to advertise prior to having the public hearing. So that'll be in the paper and on the district's website on Thursday.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gartz, did you have anything this evening?
I do, and I apologize not to make the meeting go long. I meant to say this at our workshop meeting last week, and I just wanted to get it out there before I forget. Couple things. Dr. Gleason, I know I asked last week about performance of reviewing teachers and non-tenureds and all that stuff, and I think you said that the state had made a declaration that there'll be none of that during this time period. Is that correct? You can just nod if that's true.
That's correct for tenured teachers only. Non-tenured teachers will have to receive a summative, but they have reduced the number of summative observations that we have to conduct in order to give non-tenured teachers a summative rating.
Was there any guidance given by the powers at that organization about the students and the relief that they should be given for the stress that they're going through?
With regard to state assessments and high school graduation requirements related to state assessments?
How about just that and general grading policies and procedures?
they've left those decisions locally to districts, and we are, in ongoing discussions with both the county superintendents, the county curriculum directors, and at our local meetings each week with our administrators, discussing how that will evolve. And across the county, we're seeing multiple variations from continuing numeric grading with reducing the weighting of summative assessments. We have some districts that have gone to pass fail at the high school or pass incomplete, setting certain bottom basement grades that cannot be given any lower than, let's say, a 70. So there are a variety of ways that districts are handling that. And in fact, today during some administrative meetings, we are continuing those discussions as we kind of live through this experience and make sure that our grading policy does no harm to students.
I think that's the key, Mr. Carr. The overarching philosophy as we talk to other districts about how they're approaching this is just to make sure that no student is put at a disadvantage because they found themselves in a virtual learning environment. And I think what that means in the long term, when we start to assess the end of the year, there are a couple of things we're going to have to look at. One is going to be the students' progress in this particular environment. How much progress did they make relative to what we would have expected them to make had they been in school? And that's going to lead us to do two things. One, to have probably a customized remediation program this summer so that those kids who haven't gotten full benefit of the educational process because of the learning environment will have an opportunity to do that this summer. And we are even beginning to talk about whether or not it's going to have some implications as to how you want to start school in the fall. That way there might be a period in September, the first couple of weeks in September, where more attention will be paid to assessing what students actually learned in the previous grade or the previous course. Spend some time, doing review and remediation there, and then kicking off with the new instruction. So we're looking at it at a couple of different levels, but there's an impact there. And the key right now is to make sure that there's no academic penalty to the students for having found themselves in this situation. And Lisa and the principals are working very hard as to how we can do that, because that's going to have to be done a little bit differently for elementary students versus the middle and high school students. Probably least critical at the high school, but we're looking at it very carefully.
Thank you. And then just two more questions, both for Brian, actually, just again to keep me on track, because I did want to bring this up at our workshop. Brian, I just want to ensure that at our next workshop meeting in May, that we have a preliminary report from School Dude that we've talked about several times to discern kind of how the system can provide reports to the F&F committee and help us through the process of tracking work orders, et cetera, so we can, stay on top of what's happening and be prepared. So I would just ask to remind you of that. And then the other thing I would just like to bring to the group's attention, or at least Brian's attention. Brian, I've looked at some other districts, and I've noticed that some districts have a school treasurer, custodian of school monies report provided in every monthly packet. Is that something that we've ever done? I kind of like what's there, and I like that it's certified on a monthly basis. I don't know if there's a cost to that with our custodian of school records. I know they're not in this immediate area, but I'd like to have a discussion around that. And if you have some comment after I've done that, that's fine too. And then the other thing I noticed was a specific board secretary report with a certification document that the board secretary certified the following reports. And I know you serve dual roles, so I don't know where the line is drawn between your BA role and your board secretary role in terms of what's presented to the board. So I'd like to just either hear it tonight or just put that on the table for our discussion as we move forward.
Okay, we can add that to the agenda for May. Originally the School Dude reporting, we were looking to start the school year in July. However, because of the situation we currently are in, we're able to move that up. So that'll be on the May agenda. With regard to the reports that are provided, the treasurer of school money provides the treasurer's report, which is included in the packet each month. And then myself as the secretary provide the board secretary's report, and they are to match. So that's the independence of the two, because our district maintains a treasurer of school monies. But we can talk, I can have that on the agenda for May. We can compare what reports are provided in other districts and see what we can do to provide the Board of Education additional reports or reports in different formats if they would like.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that it's there. I think maybe it's just not as delineated as I've seen in other districts. So that's fine. We can catch up on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Krem, did you have something else? Your hand's still up or no? You're muted.
No, I just neglected to put my hand back down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So the only thing I want to say is I want to say thank you to all the parents of the district for their support during these difficult times. The support they're providing the teachers. You know, I mentioned it last time that, you know, teachers have families, our staff has families, the families that are dealing with the students at home while trying to work. And then the added stress of not being able to see other family members because we have to be separated from elderly parents at this time and other family members. So it really is an unprecedented time and difficult for everybody, but our parents have been terrific with feedback. Our administrators in all the schools and the central office, I mean, the jobs they're doing, connecting with the parents, you know, and staff and positive messages going out are remarkable. And our instructional staff that are the classroom teachers with the boots on the ground, certainly the work they're doing, if anybody knows a teacher, I will tell you personally, I believe they are probably working harder now than they do in the classroom with these lesson plans and virtual plans and everything they're doing. So certainly my hats are off to them because I wouldn't be able to do that. And I give them a lot of credit, and I know our parents and everybody appreciates the hard job they're doing. So I just want to say that, and I think they should be recognized every time for the hard work they're doing. Chris, did you have something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So I just wanted to let everybody know that the board is continuing deliberation on the finalists for superintendent. We have hopes to be able to bring forth our finalists soon. As you can understand, there are some final stages and procedures that are impacted due to the coronavirus pandemic. And so with that, the board is, you know, taking some creative steps and outside the box adjustments on the fly to make sure that we are, you know, taking all due diligence towards that. And the last thing that I just want to say, I know there was a storm that came through here earlier today, and I know there's a bunch of downed trees all over the place, and I just hope that everybody is safe and okay. That's it.
Thank you, Chris. So at this time, if nobody else has anything, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting, and I would just like to wish and hope everybody stays safe and your family stay safe as we continue to move through this in week 6, and you know, hopefully the light's at the end of the tunnel and we'll come out of it stronger. Could I have a motion, please?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.